Hello, and welcome to a quick unboxing and review. I'm gonna be opening two knives that came in the mail today using my recently customized Civivi backlash with a fade dye job and acid etch and then a light sand. So both of these came in today by chance. They're both new and I thought I would share them with you. So, this is my first time seeing either of them. One of them came off of Knife Swap, and the other one came to me directly from the manufacturer. Alright. This is the item from Knife Swap, so even though it's from Knife Swap, I expect it to be in like new condition, because that's how it was listed. Right, Kunwu Padre. It is still oily. If that's not a sign of freshness, I don't know what is. Just wipe this off here in just a moment. Take a quick look. I don't even believe he has cleaned off the pivot collar. The weight feels right. It feels solid. It feels pretty balanced. I don't. The blade doesn't seem super thick, but yeah, I mean, I guess it is still a lot of blade because of the height. Let's give it a quick wipe off camera here. It's not very often that I buy into the hype on a new model. This one is unlike anything I have in my, I guess we'll call it a collection. That's probably the most appropriate. Yeah, a little Windex on the Damascus pivot collar. And let's see what we have. Yeah, so good definition on the pivot collar, but not a lot of brightness. Let's see. No contrast, not really popping with any bright oranges or reds or purples, but it's my understanding that that can be changed. Very cool. All right, so that's the first one. Let's go ahead and get the other one open here, and then we'll do a quick size comparison. All right, I think we're done with this guy. Yeah, so Mocenary knives and tools. This is the MK-13. And this is the first time I've purchased anything directly from them. I have a couple others that I've purchased through the secondary. And this is supposed to be a hand customized version of a brand new model that they made. There were 5 available, and I was able to have my selection by contacting the store directly because they were having trouble with payments. So it appears that we are vacuum sealed here. This will be interesting for me as well as you because I've never seen the backside of the knife. I've only seen this angle. So let's go ahead and pop it open here. So it looks like we've done the vacuum sealing in place of tons of oil, and I am down with that. That is okay by me. Yeah, all right. Well, it looks pretty sharp. It is on the smaller side. Mocenary MK-13. It is certainly oiled. It's just not as oiled. Let's give it a little wipe down off camera here and see where we end up. Since part of the lure with this particular knife was his custom anodization, his flame torch anodization here. I've tried to do it myself. I just can't make the torch heat localized enough. I can't make it small enough to get good definition. And it looked like on one of these knives in particular, he managed to get a really cool, almost a watercolor effect. You should at least be looking at the Padre, right? All right, so a little wipe down here. We have the Mocenary MK-13 now cleaner. And I just feel like the chance that I'm picking up the brightness of this handle on camera seems unlikely. Yeah, so it was really neat. He had a video showing the CNC breakdown for his integral design. I thought a very neat detail with the clip. To hold it in place, it has another section back here that it's nested. You know, one of the best part of integrals is the clip. Because it's integral to the knife, it can just be removed, and the frame doesn't suffer. So this knife will be even better once I remove that clip. This is maybe like a Goldilocks zone for me, hand size for size of cutting blade. It's supposed to be a sub 3-inch blade. Let's say that's accurate. We've got some comparisons here, and you know, I really liked the way that the striping seemed to have a more striking design from a distance than just your standard stripe pattern. So this was my choice. Let's check the action. Action is tight, quite tight. Doesn't feel bad. Just it looks like we've got a bead blast finish, and it may be that we're just not totally worn in yet. Yeah, I'm getting no drop from the top, even though the action feels okay. Lots of lockbar tension. We'll see. We'll play around with that a little bit. Let's do a quick size comparison. Since these two aren't great size comparisons for each other, let's flip them over to their stable side and look at a few others that are similar, maybe in size, or more familiar anyway. All right, so we've got, let's start with Spyderco. We've got your Spyderco Paramilitary 2. I'll try to line them up by pivot, and a Spyderco Sage 5. Two of my personal preferences for the best, my ideal Spydercos, I guess, for their respective sizes. There we go, lined up with the scale on one side and the blade on the other board. So yeah, decent size comparison. You see the Padre and the Paramilitary 2 are extremely close, and the Sage 5 and the Mark 13, MK-13 are also fairly similar. So if you have Spyderco's, that probably helps. If you don't, then maybe you know Hogue knives a little bit. So that is the Hogue Ritter full size. This is the Hogue Deca. And this is the Hogue Ritter small. So the Deca is a nice in-between. You kind of see almost a nice size scale coming from larger to smaller. I think the Ritter is slightly larger than the Padre, the full size, and I would say that the MK-13 looks like it's very similar to the small Ritter. Alright, so for size, so if you have Hogue, you might know those. Those are popular, great knives. If you haven't checked them out, you probably should. If Civivi is more your thing, then maybe you know the Baby Banter. The name for that will come to me, and the Vision. So kind of popular knives at the moment. Chances of you having seen or handled one of them at least is good. The name escapes me. It is a great knife from Civivi. I just it's been a minute since I've seen the name, I think. We'll see, maybe it'll come to me later. And then popular knives currently, the AD 20.5 and the Kaiser Cormorant. So yeah, there we see, again, pretty similar in size, the Mark 13 and the AD 20.5. Blade-wise, however, very different in the handle. Of course, the AD 20 has very poor blade-to-handle ratio. So make of that what you will, but there's your size comparison if you know those popular knives. And then lastly, we'll do, for any Benchmade fans, the Benchmade 945 and the Benchmade 940. And then let's see here if we can move these down enough to make room for the most obvious size comparison. That would be the Espada XL from Cold Steel. And we'll put that there just to help you visualize the total size here. It looks like we're just a little tall yet. So yeah, for pocket carry, you'll see the Padre is a much more reasonable size for most pockets. However, you got to appreciate the room on the handle for the Cold Steel Espada XL. Alright, so hopefully by now you have a good idea of the size, and we'll just look real quick at the knives themselves. And maybe I've got a few knives here that I think might be similar in design, but they're probably not very common, and that's why we did the other knives first for size comparison. So let's go ahead and talk about the Padre. I think that's probably the one that more people know at this point. Probably always will be that way. And yeah, so I see it's hungry. It wants to bite. I was warned about that by other reviewers. It is quite tall, of course, and it's a little on the thick side in the blade. Honestly, I expected it to be a little thinner. It does come down fairly thin, but it does not take long before it gets wide coming up the blade. As we mentioned before, the Damascus has great definition, although it is pretty bland in saturation. and contrast. That's okay, I don't really care too much about that. And then let's see, as a front flipper, and again, front flipper is my least favorite opening mechanism. And here we have two front flippers primarily, although thankfully they can both be opened other ways as well. Thumb access is good. Yeah, you can hear the hear the finish under the detent ball. See if the mic picks that up here. It's very obvious. You can almost hear the stonewash. It will wear in, of course, and be nice and smooth. We'll see how long that takes to happen on the Vanax steel, which is new to me. I've never had any, although the concept of an extremely stain-resistant steel has always been attractive. I've just had Spyderco H1, then the LC200N, which has been great, of course, for stain resistance. It is quite fun to fidget with. I will say the handle being shaped like it is seems to give really good purchase for the thumb roll. I don't really need to use the clip for that. I mean, the clip is in the same spot, but I think it's actually the shape of the handle that makes that work. And it just so happens that the clip, of course, is in the same shape. Yeah, so it's excellent. It is a little on the heavy side. Not unduly heavy, but it's not a lightweight knife. And then real quick, we'll just do a rough blade length measurement. Looks like we're falling just short of 3.4 inches. Blade length, we're probably at 3.37. And then handle length, total handle length with our protrusion is going to be a lot more. Let's see. How about 5.8 inches. 4.8 inches. Yeah, it makes more sense. Yeah, so quite long. Not huge, just with the extra choil, it means you've got a lot of handle. My hands are not enormous. I like to wear a medium glove if it's going to be nitrile because I prefer it to be extremely tight. And some large gloves are not as tight as I would like them to be. So not the largest hands, definitely not small hands. Really probably is a natural large most accurately, but still can squeeze into a medium. And I can see if you choke up, there's some extra knife hanging out here. I don't really think that that's the reasonable grip. I think the reasonable grip is back here. I just think that that's the shape, the way the knife was meant to work. It is cool that you can choke up if you want to. That's always a nice option. It does feel quite secure in a choked up position with the extra finger locator here. That really gives me a secure grip if I wanted to do some heavy push cuts very close to me. Yeah, it's an exciting knife. I can see why the knife community as a whole is interested and excited for it. I don't think I have any great comparison knives for this, but we'll take a look at a few relevant things anyway. Yeah, so once again, we'll select here the lay flat side. This knife is modified. This is a VDK War Admiral, and it has been modified significantly. Was modified a long time ago. I purchased it somewhat recently, and I grabbed it because it actually bears a lot of similarities to the Padre. You can see the handle especially is very similar, with the difference, of course, in the flipper versus the extra choil. And so you've got more blade length, you've got less blade belly, but you have a very similar, the person that modified it, AK Customs, AK Customizations, something of that nature, picked a swedge profile that is pretty similar to the Padre. They're definitely different. The War Admiral is hollow ground, made by We Knives. It has the fuller that kind of extends all the way to the end and a different cutout, but yeah, interesting that the result ended up so similar, because this knife started out more like a cleaver with a slight belly. I don't think that the belly of the knife has been modified, only the handle, the stone texturing has been added, and then the regrind up here. You can even see a little bit of the VDK marker still. And it looks like, yeah, we'll see, try turning that light off. That looked like that was adding some strange light here to our focus, probably was off. So VDK War Admiral, probably the most similar thing I have, although it's a knife that doesn't even exist in that form to go by. The next two I have are also customized by chance. This is a Gavco Thresher, made by We Knives, sold by Drop. This knife has been modified. You know, maybe I have my shops backwards. Maybe this is the one that was done by the AK Customizations. I can't recall. I bought them both secondhand. I'm sure I have it in my notes somewhere. But this knife has belly for days. Of course, it has a completely different spine swedge profile here. Other than that, I mean, it does have a flat grind, probably is somewhat similar for the base grind. It just terminates much differently. And then the stone texturing of the spine here, that was one of the customizations. The hole, and then these holes were all added, and then custom hardware. And then the last one, looking very pink at the moment because I cleaned it before the video. With a little handling, it really tends more towards purple than pink. And this one has been customized as well. It received some heavy wire brushing or stippling, different color anodizing, and then it had the hardware stippled and anodized as well. And then the acid stonewash on the blade. And then their pelagic handle shape, which, see if we can turn this enough to get that to pick up. You know, I am sure that this handle shape does not work for everyone's hands. It is, you can see, it is about perfect for my hand. And yeah, so again, same knife, different customizations. They have bellies, and that makes them similar in my opinion, although none of these knives are super common or available. Yeah, anyway, similar. I don't have any Evos or any custom knife factory knives at all, so you don't have to worry about that coming. We'll look, I had a couple more everyday carry type or bushcraft fixed blade style knives. I wasn't sure how similar they would be, so I just wanted to bring them out so we could take a look. And you know, obviously there's way too much flat back here for this one to be similar. However, it's not dissimilar. The drop point style tip here, I see a little bit. It's like if you combined these two knives and then made it taller, you could get the shape here of the blade edge. Although the little muck here, the blind horse knife in 01 steel, that blade profile is, yeah, I mean, it starts out similar and then it turns into it turns into way more belly. When this one becomes drop point, this one continues to belly. Yeah, so no match in those. And by the way, this is Nick Wright knives. He does small batch. This is an 01. This is the EDC size knife, and his handles are amazing if you ever have a chance to try it. So this is actually, yeah, I believe this is called the EDC. The others I have are called the Stinger, I think. Both great knives. All right, still searching for the right blade shape. Let's try Spyderco Southern. Yeah, maybe a little bit. And then, since we're also talking about rust resistance and belly, let's look at the Spyderco Chef. So again, we have similarities in the blade edge, but not really in the rest of the knife. I thought the Spyderco would be interesting because it also has quite a bit of the handle curve. The cant is significantly different between the Southern and the Padre. For the blade edge to be in the same location, your handle alignment is much different. Yeah, so part of what's interesting is that the overall shape, the cant of this knife with the blade belly, it's just more than normal. Spyderco Chef is less of a match than I expected. And then I thought that we would look at these two knives, the ProTech SNG Strider design knife and a Tucson TS 229 in M390. Obviously these knives have similar termination for the hand placement in the front of the knife. The difference is that the back of the handle drops off differently, and I was curious how in the hand it actually fills my hand. If I miss having the palm support for the Padre with the tapered off shape, because really this is the shape that a lot of knives would have if we didn't bother with the silly lanyard holes that nobody wants. Right? We could make all of our knives shorter because the blades naturally terminate there, and this knife has just removed it, which makes it more banana shaped than other knives. So in the hand, my hand does put, with this portion of the handle puts a little pressure on my knife, this knife puts a little pressure on my hand in this location, and it feels super secure. It doesn't feel like the knife wants to pivot at all. It feels very braced. And then so I'm thinking that based on the shape, the Strider knife is very much the same, and you see it sticks out with a lot of extra handle, actually very similar to what everybody has said with the Padre, with the choil that far into the blade, where you have a 50-50 choil, you're going to see that. I mean, you're going to have handle extra. You have extra handle on any knife that has that. I mean, the PM2 is sitting over here, and it's the same way. If I choke up to the front of the blade, I've got handle hanging off. So if you want a 50-50 choil design on a knife, any knife this size, you're going to have extra handle. That's physics, anatomy. Anyway, same thing here with this knife, very secure in the hand. With the extra meat sticking out, it probably is even more secure for sliding off the back of the knife. Of course, you're more likely to slide forward, and there's very little protection in this type of design for that type of handling. So now the Padre in the hand, holding it the way that I think is probably most intentional, I'd say the taper works. I'd say if you're holding back here, I'd say the taper is perfect. And while this still works, holding back on the knife here, this is wider than it needs to be. I think the taper works in my hand. It does encourage a very rounded grip on the handle, more so than, you know, a secure wedged grip on a fatter handle, and I don't mind it. For my hand, it works. Choked up, it also works. I feel very secure with the contouring in this direction. It means I'm holding multiple different thicknesses, and I think that makes it really secure. Yeah, this is a very cool knife. I'm looking forward to it. I did see on another video they said that the hardware is steel. I didn't actually check that on the listing. Be curious to see what type of steel they've used for the hardware, because it seems kind of silly to me to make a knife out of titanium and Vanax and then turn around and put some sort of basic stainless hardware on it. So I'll have to look into that a little bit. You know, at the very least, you'd expect them to make it out of a similarly resistant steel. I know, at least I believe Spyderco used some LC200 in for their hardware on the, at least the continuous improvement versions of the Spyderco Chef. So I don't know, maybe we've done something similar here. I hope so. And then one last stab here at finding a similar knife. This video's already gone much longer than I anticipated, although I was aware that there was a chance. I'm not super happy with the anodizing that I did on this knife. It was an experiment. I just haven't come back and redone it yet. This is the TS129. Great knife, great design. Yeah, I don't really know what more to say about that knife. It's got a magic blade to handle ratio, and I thought that it actually had a similar knife design in the blade compared to the Padre. Namely that these knives both have decent belly. Obviously the Padre has a lot more belly, but they have a nice round section. And then the 129, with a decent amount of blade left, it actually flattens out. Some of them actually recurve slightly even, but you know, basically it's a flat edge, and it provides the same function that you get with the smaller portion of flat edge here on the Padre. I would say that this portion is even more accessible if you look at how far lifted the flat needs to be, or the handle needs to be for the flat to be on the table. And then for the Padre, you'll see that you actually need to be all the way up here. And that's okay. That means that your hand is farther away from your cutting surface. It does mean that you have to lift more for a natural flat cutting termination. However, it's still not an unreasonable way for you to be holding the knife. Maybe not the most natural, but not the most unreasonable. And then last try for belly, TS177, total fail. Not even close. I don't know what I was thinking with that one. Now keep in mind, I hadn't actually touched the Padre or the MK-13 before I was able to pick knives here to compare them to. So Kunwu Padre, very long-winded comparison and first thoughts. Action's not great. Detent is very good. I think the action will wear in. I think that's detent. The pivot feels pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, so either this knife is slightly over tightened, or the pivot also needs to wear in a little bit. Maybe that they want it to wear in at the torque setting that the pivot is at currently, but I will probably end up opening this up and taking a look at the inside anyway. We won't do that on this video because it's already far too long, and we got one more knife to compare, to look at. All right, so yeah, once again, a quick little look refresher on the Mocenary MK-13. So his models are just numbered sequentially as far as I'm aware. and I purchased this directly off of AliExpress through the Mocenary Knife official store. I attempted to purchase it through their webpage, and I was unsuccessful because there was an issue with their PayPal setup, and so I wasn't able to order through their store. I contacted them on AliExpress, got great communication back and forth with them, and they were able to set me up with the ability to purchase this customized version through the AliExpress store, even though it wasn't listed there at the time. So obviously we've got a Wharncliffe design. We kind of have a slight upsweep at the tip. No markings on the blade other than the Mocenary symbol on that side. And then here we have CPM 20CV, rattlesnake design, and MK-13 model number. So we have the insert for the stop pin. And then pivot access and lockbar insert. It's interesting. He's got we'll have to look at that. It appears that there's a small screw directly in front of the pocket clip. I'm not sure what that would be for. Looks like maybe, so it looks like the overtravel stop is incorporated back here in the knife as opposed to being forward, where it would traditionally be part of the lockbar insert. It's been incorporated with a second screw. Interesting. Yeah, so we'll take a look at that, and so I'm going to go ahead and take this clip off, and let's go ahead and see if we can loosen this back to regular action. We'll assume T8 that it is, and it was quite tight. Well, it had to be. Let's see, when I loosened it a little bit, the centering went all the way back to the side. Yeah, so I mean we're just tight maybe. So when it's centered, it needs to wear in a little more. And you can see it doesn't actually matter whether the lock bar is down or not. It's just a little on the stiff side. So it is being integral, which is my preferred way of pronouncing it. They can be a little tight. I have a number of them that are well dialed in, but it's possible that this just needs a little time to be happy. I love the way that the color dances on the handle as it moves through the light. Let's look at a couple knives that I think might be reasonable comparisons, or at least interesting for some reason or another. First of those is a Mocenary MK-13. So this is the first Mocenary knife I ever got. I purchased this on the second hand. It was very gently used. It came nice and sharp. It came without lock stick, and I can't seem to get the pivot to stay in a happy spot. When the pivot is locked down properly, the button works great with no stick, but as soon as the blade starts to get lost, loose, I pick up a little blade stick. The action is not affected. I love the 3D milling of this knife and the way it fits my hand. This is a great kind of small but full-size knife. Small in the pocket, fills the hand nicely. So recent manufacturing from Mocenary. This one, however, I've had for some time. So I guess maybe somewhat controversial. My understanding was that this is a clone of a much more expensive custom knife that takes years to get and thousands of dollars. And I'm not really one to pay that kind of money for a knife. I appreciate that there are people in the market who can afford to pay that kind of money to custom artisans to further their work and their efforts. I just can't bring myself to carry something in that price range, and so I don't personally want to own them. They are still a tool to me first and foremost. So this is a maglock knife with a very interesting blade grind, and you see there the Mocenary emblem. Let's see if I can get that up clearly. Same emblem. I see I'm fighting with multiple lights here. But yeah, I think that's visible. And then the knife just locks together with the magnet holds together. There is no lock. Your hand locks the knife together when the knife is fully open. Both of these handles are contacting pins in the handle, in the blade, and it doesn't move. And this knife is sterile, except for the M390 marking. And I've always been impressed with the manufacturing of this knife. The blade comes down to a great edge, and when I purchased it, I was told that it was made by Mercenary Knives. I can certainly understand how that confusion would happen. And then I did an early attempt at a heat anodizing entropic finish on this knife myself. And ruined the magnets in it. So if you ever anodize a magnetic knife, take the magnets out first, or at least plan on replacing them. But yeah, beautiful hand rubbed straights here, and then mirror polished, and I mean truly mirror polished flats here on this edge. You know, everything's super clean. It's comes to a very nice clean edge. Everything is even. Just obviously a well-made knife. There was no question. Yeah, and I'm happy now to have a couple others in the collection. So that's all I know of Mocenary knives so far. Does look like they have a couple other interesting designs, but I haven't had the occasion to check them out yet. They can be rather expensive. I believe these knives, the Mocenary Mark III, those knives sell for $130 new. That's not an expensive knife. $130 new for the 20 CV, the fit and finish that exists here. And from what I've seen, the steel testing results in hardness look great for the brand. I think you get a whole lot for $130. In fact, I'd say it's a smoking deal. So I want to be clear about that. You know, this knife isn't a lot more. This knife before the custom anodization is only $160 on their AliExpress store. It's on sale. I think that's a fantastic price for a small integral knife. It's probably not the cheapest price for a knife this size. However, you know, you probably for the Benchmade 945 that's made out of stock materials or G10, and I believe it's also 20 CV and steel liners with a sandwich construction, and it's probably the same price or more expensive than this integral titanium custom anodized knife that I got from China. It is from China. They're Chinese knives, and I'm okay with that. So let's look at a couple other great small Chinese knives that may be somewhat similar, things that you may be aware of, or at least that I expected might be similar. So we grabbed this Kaiser mini Begleiter, and I believe this is the steel type is N690, and then this is their micarta handle. This is great, has a great texture to it. You know, I knew from the stats that the handle was going to be similar. This knife does fit my hand fully, even as a large size hand. It is a little tight, and I wouldn't want it to be any smaller, but it definitely works for me, and there's no question that I have all four fingers on this knife. This knife is more secure. There's more room here because of the design where the knife meets the handle. I've got all kinds of room. I don't have to feel close to the knife blade. And I actually have even a little bit of extra knife sticking out. Everything's round. There are no hot spots. The rounding on the corners is nice. And I think the pocket clip's a super cool touch, even though, as we've said, I'll probably remove that. I am a little bummed that the only place for tritium is in the clip, because I'm sure I will like the knife better without the clip. And tritium's fun too, right? And, this is kind of like the classic. This is like your rite of passage. You make your first titanium knife. You've got to do your first integral titanium knife. You do your crosshatch on the back because it's just what you do. It's what everybody does. And, well, I mean, it does look great. So as a front flipper right now, it's decent. I'm not great with front flippers. They're not my favorite to start with. And the detent here is on the stiff side currently, which makes this a little hard to handle. We saw already that attempting to quickly loosen it a little bit made a huge effect on the centering, which is otherwise perfect. So we'll mess around with that a little bit and we'll see what we get. But yeah, so hand filling comparison, and then blade size comparison. It's interesting. The scale seems to be about the same. This just scaled up slightly larger. What is that? A 5% scale larger knife. But it's amazing how much difference there is in the handle, with the difference in the way the junction between the blade and the handle is handled. Very good. All right, so the Wee Schism. This is a newer one that I picked up. We'll move this up out of the way a little bit. Also very small, kind of similar in handle shape actually, and this is more of a true flat edge, whereas the MK-13 has a little bit of sweep, and then of course we have thumb studs here, and we have Wee action, which is at this point superior to the Mocenary MK-13 action. However, both of the other knives have great actions, so they may come along. Wee Schism, that's a great knife. And then Integral Designs. So this one's interesting. I actually thought this one might compare decently with the Padre, or at least make an interesting point in the way that the handle terminates, because they both have a deep grip here where they're a little short, and then they widen, and of course the Wee Eterna sweeps back the other direction, and it works well in hand, but you definitely miss some of the hand fill from the reduced back. It's a great knife, and it's super comfortable to use. It's just a little strange ergonomically. I think I wanna pinch this one more than I want to do like a heavy grip, and that makes sense. This is a very thin blade stock, and it goes super thin behind the edge. Great knife, very relevant, I think, to the MK-13, but we'll see. Obviously, it's much larger. So a little bit more similar, or at least I expected it to be more similar, is the Wee Pleroma. So this is another Elijah Isham design, and we have a similar handle thing going on. I thought the blade shapes would be very similar, and we can see here they are actually quite similar with the cutout. Of course, the difference being in the way the handle again sweeps back versus coming actually forward with the process on that knife. This is a great knife if you have a chance to pick one up. Of course, they're out of production now and somewhat limited. Well, they're impossible to buy new, and so buying them used makes them difficult to find. Both of these knives share that fully integral design. They have tons of cutouts here for carbon fiber, but everything is one piece of titanium, and they are fantastic. Truly awesome design pieces. It's a shame that there won't be more fresh designs from the same mind, because it was awesome. But let's be honest, this MK-13 is pretty interesting. So, as is the MK-03, and I'm excited to see what else comes. Finally, we have the Black Void Opus. Another kind of strange front flipper knife. This knife, of course, doesn't have any way to open it from the front, and it is chisel ground. But hand fill wise, I thought maybe we would find that it is similar, and we do find that it's similar. It is a little smaller for a hand grip than the MK-13. Not hugely. I can also get a full hand on this design. And then the same with the Pleroma, although it's also shorter unless I choke forward, which is possible because you have this nice flat plateau here. You can definitely choke up on this knife and it doesn't feel awkward at all. So there it is, a very long-winded review and first look of the MK-13 and the Kunwu Padre. Some talk about Mocenary knives and their designs. I'm happy with what's going on here. I am definitely going to take a look at improving the action a little bit. We'll see what it takes for that. I would say that the lockbar certainly doesn't need to be under as much tension as it is currently, and that may help with the detent for the front flipping. So, if you get one, maybe expect to dial it in a little bit, but $160 for this type of integral design, and if you pick them up on auction, they do carry the plain titanium versions in eBay auctions on occasion under Mercenary official store. In fact, I have a friend who was able to pick one up. I believe the last one went for $140 after tax. Yeah, so not bad. Great design, especially if you like smaller knives, and a small knife that works big, has decent blade size for the handle, and has plenty to hold on to. I will say that I find the smaller knife front flippers like this don't work for me as well in my preferred front flipper handling method, which is to roll my finger over. I want to nest the knife in my palm and flip it over, and with the knife this small, if I do that, the blade ends up going into my palm. So, as a reverse finger flipper, it's great. As a thumb roll, I'm sure it will be awesome as soon as I get the detent where I want it. And then, as a reach around right now, the detent just isn't appropriate for that. Let's see, it's a pretty good size hole. I feel like I should be able to almost thumb flick it. It's just not wide enough in this dimension. So, long first look, talk about Mocenary MK-13, Kunwu Padre. These knives are extremely different in steel and I think use case ideology. And, I've got the Kaiser Mystic coming tomorrow, I hope, from White Mountain Knives in Rex 45, which I think is going to be interesting. It's almost the polar opposite of the Padre here as far as knife steel goes, and I'm kind of interested to compare the two of them. That should be exciting. Don't know that we'll see more videos. This is the first video I plan on making public. I really only made the video because I personally couldn't find any videos on the MK-13. I had to wait for this to ship from China. It did actually arrive in good time compared to other knives that are currently en route. I purchased a number of other items from other common knife sellers in China, and the Mocenary knife passed them all up in shipping to get here in, I believe it was a total of 17 days from the day I ordered. It's not the shortest time I've seen from China, certainly. However, it does not seem to have experienced the same delays affecting my two son purchased knives, who I've got knives that are more than 30 days out right now from them that haven't even arrived in the States yet, according to tracking. So if you are interested and you've experienced a two-son shipping time, from my experience of one single instance, your chance of getting a Mocenary knife quickly off of eBay through international shipping is at least as good, if not better, than two-son. Yeah, so thanks for joining me. Let me know if you enjoyed the content. I'm happy to hear any criticism or critiques, and if I continue doing it, I'll try to improve going forward. Knife videos, there's a lot of them already on the internet, but I have interest in knives that don't have a lot of videos, and I like modifying knives, and I'm not afraid to tear into them and change them and look at them for problems and make modifications. So hopefully that provides an interesting spin. Give me a thumbs up if you want to see more, and if you subscribe, I guess you'll find out whether or not I make more videos. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.